Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jason. On today's show, we're going to talk about how to have really hard conversations, why people crack under pressure, and we're going to talk about diamonds, all on today's show. Salon owners are some of the most amazing people on planet Earth. The only problem is sometimes their hearts are so big and they give so much of themselves to their staff and guests that it creates unintended consequences. Our goal is to change the industry by elevating the way the rest of the world sees salons, spas, and barbershops and give it the credibility that it truly deserves. This is the Salon Owner Evo Revo Show. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jason from the High Performance Salon Academy and Mr. Doug Campbell. What's up, Doug?
How's it going?
Dude, as always, really good to see you. Excited about having our conversation today because I think that what's happening right now in the world, obviously everybody knows, is like an unprecedented sort of scenario. And I even hate saying that term because everybody's just talking about it that way. But I do think that right now, if I'm just calling it for what it is, people are having to have some ridiculously hard conversations. You were mentioning some conversation with vendors that you've had to have. You know, I know staffs are having really hard conversation with the owners. Owners are having hard conversation with staff. You know, families are having hard conversations. Lots of people are having hard conversations. And there's just things that I think, and by the way, if you agree that hard conversations are being had right now and they're hard, type in hard conversations in the chat. Or just type in the word hard, because I think that right now, your ability to handle and master hard conversations is what will get you through this time, no matter what's going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, because now when pressure happens, when extreme pressure happens, when people's real character shows up. Yeah. And so that triggers a point that you've got to have this conversation. Because when it's easy and everything's going good, then you have little bumps in the road and everything. But it's like pressure brings out true character. It's like a good friend of ours, Blair Singer, talks about, who you are is how you show up playing a game. When you get this pressure of a game going, the real you shows up every time. I mean, it's just one of those things. And we're in that moment where there's been a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure of, when we're down, when we're going to open. And now then we're open, or a lot of people are opening or about to open. And so now then it's on. It's like, where am I getting? Do I got enough supplies? Do I not got enough staff? Am I communicating with my clients correctly? Am I finding out which of my good clients and which of my clients that I probably should not have as clients anymore?
Yeah, totally. And I'll bring this up because, I just want to say this. I'm very excited. California allows haircuts. So I got myself a haircut yesterday. I'm super excited. I didn't go bananas. I just thought haircut was the way to do it. And I just want to say this for all of you guys that are not open yet. Like, it's coming. Be patient. I know that, some states you're going to have hard conversations. The governor's having everybody's having these hard conversations. And what we're finding is that in politics and in life, people are buckling under pressure, or they're excelling under pressure, right? And you get to be the judge of who's doing well and who's not. And maybe you're like, damn it, these salons are not open in our city, and this is horrible. Things are showing up in these conversations. The reason why I bring this up is I was talking to a stylist who I don't normally have as my regular stylist, and I was talking with her yesterday, and she just mentioned to me, she said, I said, how's it going? I said, with your salon, what's been the conversations? What have you done? Because, in the High Performance Salon Academy, we've been helping people out all the time with all this stuff. And she says, well, we got an email when we closed down. Picture this, Doug. They got an email saying, it looks like we're going to be closed for a while. And then we haven't heard from our salon owners since then at all. Zero conversation. And then she said, as soon as they announced that we could open up, she said, the only thing we got was an email saying, hey, we're going to have a team meeting this day, and then we're going to open this day. So that's been the entire communication for the last 75 days here in California that this stylist has had with the salon owner. And if that makes you sick, do me a favor and type in the chat and say sick. And it made me sick when I heard about this, because in the academy, Doug, we've been doing support calls 5 days a week since I'm looking at the calendar over here, since March 14th. That was the very first support call that we did, March 14th on a Saturday. I think I ran them 7 days a week for a week or two. 7 days a week, support calls for our salons. And then we also started running, and then it was 5 days a week. I backed it down to 5 days a week for a while, right? We backed it down to 5 days a week, and now we're kind of lightening them up because more salons are getting back in the flow and what's going on. But here's the question. How are your vendors treating you right now? Think about this for a second, because I think there was two responses to this, and Doug, you have to help me out, but I think there was two responses. Tell me if you think there was more. I think some people showed up big and like double, tripled, quadrupled down on how they're serving you. And they just went to they cared for you. They took care of you. They super served you. They did whatever they could to make it work for you. And they said, how can we help? And what can we do to be made bigger? And then the other thing is that people did is they shirked away from you, meaning they showed up or they shirked away. And I think there's vendors that were out there that were just like, well, sorry, nothing we can do. Talk to you in a few months.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I mean, we had some that showed up. There's like, hey, hey, look, we've got this. We know this is something you're going to be needing. We found at this price point. Do you need us to get to you? Well, I'll go pick it up and drop it off at your salon. Totally. Really helping us fill the holes and just being there for us. And it was funny. Some of those were the smaller vendors, because we have several different distributors that we work with. Some of the smaller ones are the ones that showed up bigger. Some of the bigger ones kind of, oh, well, we really can't do anything right now. And we're not allowed to come out to salons. We're not allowed to do this. And it's like, you're not allowed to come in, but it doesn't mean that you couldn't help out. You couldn't have a conversation. You couldn't help facilitate things along the way.
Yeah.
So it's been very interesting. So we're having to have some tougher conversations about, who do we really want to do business with and during this process, because I want people that I'm working with, because everybody in business on all sides of the equation should be making money and should be enjoying it. It should be a win-win situation. It shouldn't be that, and I don't feel that's the situation with all of it right now. So it's just weird that, and some of these relationships are longer relationships, and we're going to have conversations. Either things have got to change, or we may have to make some bigger changes and reward the ones that have been showing up for us. And, the ones that aren't willing to show up for us, like, well, okay. But right now is whenever things are moving so quick, getting supplies and some of the warehouses are weeks behind because they haven't ramped back up to full shift work. And so you have to get everything from local supply stores. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge with the amount of, because you got to figure, for each person that's coming in, you're not even doing a normal color retouch. You're doing a makeup for almost 2 months of hair not being done.
Totally.
So you're pulling a lot more color through. You're having to cover more root growth than you normally would have to cover. So the amount of product that you're using is quite higher than what you normally use, even at the Christmas time. And we need people that are going to show up and help us work through this and not be causing problems there. Or you have to chase them down and beg for, hey, So I just think, and like I said, some of these are relationships that we've had for a while, but we're going to have some conversation. Just because we've had a relationship, I think sometimes people take a relationship for granted. Just like in marriage, sometimes you think my spouse is always going to be there. Well, you start treating them horribly. They may not.
Well, and I see on here, Jody, by the way, lots of you guys are sounding off in the comments, by the way. Thank you so much. Jody says on here, how to make the decision not to bring back one of my stylists. Thank you. Yeah, that's a giant comment. I didn't get the whole thing. You can take that down for me. But I looked at it from a standpoint of like, look, how to let a stylist go. This is the other thing I want to talk about. We're talking today about vendors. Are vendors letting you down, or are they showing up big? And again, we're a vendor for salons. Like, we work with salons every single day. Our goal, show up bigger than ever before. Show up 1,000 times bigger than we've ever done instead of run away. We could have said, look, guys, we'll just leave you guys alone. Call us in a couple months when you open, or could we show up 100 times bigger? We went from literally doing, and this is not about us, by the way. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make this sound like just us. But like, we went from providing 4 to 6 trainings a month to providing 27 something trainings a month. Like, the goal was, how do we show up big, right? So we're talking about vendors. How do vendors show up? How do your guests show up inside the salon? Because Doug, you were talking about this. We'll talk about that in a second. How do your guests show up? How does your staff show up? Maybe you had staff members that were like, look, I just want a vacation for 2 months. I'll see you later. I know you need help at the salon, but look, I'm on unemployment right now. So I'm just out. Thanks. See ya. I'd rather get paid more on unemployment. Also, staff, managers, owners. Did the owner of the salon show up bigger for you? Did they double down on their support to help you out and figure that out? Or maybe it's time to figure out something different. I think this really became a question. And by the way, I don't mean to make this like a giant rant about people who didn't show up and got screwed. Because I just want to say this. Look, everybody's going through a hard time. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to give some grace to people that are having issues and figuring stuff out. But I will say, as Doug pointed out earlier, that people either show up in crisis or they shirk away. They either show up or they shirk. And I think there's other things like, what are your partners? How did they operate in all this? What happened? Did they show up big? Did they try and conserve and serve? Or were they running away from the problem?
Yeah, and Jason, even if they have issues going on, you have the conversation. You still can, because you can't physically be there. So maybe you've got there's a health issue in your family or with yourself or other things, children. Is it, where else can I help? What else can I do?
Totally.
What can I do from here? There's still, it doesn't matter what the situation is, you still can do something to add value to the team and to the group. And I think that's the thing. It's like, did you just say, oh, well, and hide behind the situation? Or did you say, yes, the situation's here, and I'm limited in certain things, but there are certain areas that I could add value, and I'm willing to add value. I mean, because we had a few that, one's got an elderly mother that's got some health complications. Her coming in and out and doing those things doesn't work. But she did. She was in contact with us constantly. Places she could help out, she could help out. She did what she could do, and we valued that she showed up where she could show up. So it doesn't mean everybody has to show up physically and do something big.
It's just what can you do? What?
Right.
Yeah. It's asking the question. It's asking the question. What can I do? Not I'm sorry I can't. Right. I think this is a really big thing to just be tuned into. Is that and I want to say this too about this whole thing. Hopefully for some of you right now, this is a wake up call for you to say, how can I show up bigger? Like I'm asking that question. I don't know about you, Doug. I'm asking that question every day. How can I show up bigger? How can I serve more? What can I do? Because if you're not asking that question, then you're probably not showing up as big as you should, right? Right now, and if you're like, how do I show up bigger in my household? Like for me as being the husband to my wife, how do I show up bigger in my house right now to make sure that my kids are being cared for at the level that they need to do? Because it shouldn't just be my wife's job. How can I show up better? And if you're asking that question of yourself, we're able to have that conversation. Like my spouse and I, we went on the first date night we've had the entire, coronavirus shenanigans, right? Well, the first date night, and I'm like, how do I do better with being at home and helping out? What can I do? And she gave me a list. Like my wife, she'll tell me, she's like, here's the list. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to stop doing this. I need you to start doing this. That's called a hard conversation. Mm-hmm. I think when you as an individual are willing to view yourself and like Dawn, she said on here, she said, I need to hear this. Thank you. Right. So thanks, Dawn, for sharing that in the comments. Right. But it's like, you need to ask yourself, how can I show up bigger? And I want you to hear this. You cannot tell somebody else to show up bigger if you haven't asked yourself the question yet. Mm-hmm. Can I say that? Because I will tell you right now, I know that some of you guys are going to get on this bandwagon super quick and say, hell yeah, Jason, hell yeah, Doug, these people screwed me. And I'm just going to say to you, where have you showed up big? Where have you showed up big for somebody else? Are you, because it's a trickle down, right? You can't say, well, they didn't show up for me. Screw the government. The government maybe showed up big for you in your mind, or maybe they didn't show up big. But the idea here is, where did you show up big? Where did you rise to the occasion? Where did you show up that's here? But if not, Doug, how do we have some hard conversation with our vendors? How do we have hard conversations to say, look, you're not doing it for me? And that either wakes them up or it leaves them hanging. Let's talk about that. I
think you just have to as is it and try to do it with the least amount of emotion, because it's like, and it's not that someone's a bad person. It's like they dropped the ball. It's like, so you gotta have the conversation. It's like they're not willing to pick it up again. Say, okay, well, now I need people that want to work with me so that we all can grow. If that's not you, okay. It's just like some of our clients. We had some of our clients that, actually sent in checks for their appointments that they weren't able to make and said, I don't want any credit for that. I'm just putting that there. And, that was big for us. Had the conversation with those people when they came in. I was like, I'm not looking at, hopefully a lot of people did that. It's like, well, not a lot of people. We did have some people do it, which is amazing. But I tell you what.
Yeah, not enough to keep the salon totally afloat while you were closed.
Right. But that person's credibility with us, or those people's credibility with us, went way, way up. So if they ever need something, we need to go above and beyond for them. We need to open up at midnight for something. That's the person I'll open up for midnight with, someone that cared enough about me, my business, and my employees to stroke a check for something because they wanted to do the right thing. Doesn't mean it, and then we got people come in that want to say, well, I'm not wearing a mask. I had the right to not wear a mask. It's like, well, you do, and we also had the right not to cut your hair. Right. So there again, it's like, Are they helping her find out who your people are? And what I would say is, whether it's the vendors, whether it's staff, whether it's guests, is that you show gratitude, that you point out, you let them know that you appreciate that, reward that behavior and saying, you really showed up big. I really appreciate it. You are one of the things that brings light into my day. And I mean, it doesn't mean you have to go do the opposite to the other one. Just let that go. But make sure that you're reinforcing those behaviors with people, because that if you want more of that, you've got to reinforce that. And then, like you said, in yourself, are you doing it? Are you doing what you can? That's what in the conversation, it's not time to blow people up, or you need to be direct. You need to be clear. But it's not that you're a bad person or I hate you. It's just, for my business in this time of crisis, I need people that were going to show up. You weren't one of those.
So here's a hot tip for you. When you are having a hard conversation, correct the behavior, not the person. Super important. Okay. I want you guys to hear this. These are hot tips you can apply in your salon right now. And here's the thing. I had to have a hard conversation with a vendor last week. I sent him a message. I'll tell you this one. This is an entertaining vendor story. I had a vendor this last week who I felt was kind of phoning it in. I pay him a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars a month. And I sent him a message, say, hey, we need help with this. And they literally just one sentence, sorry, we don't do that. I was like, wow, that was really helpful, right? And it was like a normal employee at the company. And then the owner jumped in the conversation and said, what that person meant to say was, we don't typically handle that, but we'd be happy to point you in the right direction of some additional resources. Right? Now, here's what I had to say. So I had to send another thing. I had another problem. And I said, look, guys, I have this problem. Can you handle it? And they didn't handle it. So I had to send a second message. And I said, listen, I'm sorry. I guess what I meant to say was, this is an emergency. It needs immediate attention. Here's what's going on. I need it taken care of right away. So be succinct, be direct when you're having a hard conversation, and don't beat around the bush. That's number one. Number two is make sure that when you have that hard conversation, and we're in the spot like Doug and I were just talking about, talk about the behavior that you don't like. Don't make the other person your enemy. So say, look, as a vendor, if you're not providing me with the supplies that I need, that behavior is not helping me run my business. That is a problem. How do we fix it? Not, you're an a-hole, excuse my language, commented, taken out. You're an a-hole for not getting back to me is very different than say, this behavior does not make me want to stay a user of your service or of your account, of whatever's going on, right? So talk about the behavior that you want corrected. Now, here's the second thing that's really important. Then give them the space to correct. Mm-hmm. Also super important, because I've had to have this conversation with employees on our staff. I've had to do it. Look, this behavior does not work. This needs to be changed immediately, and then give them the time to correct. We had somebody yesterday who did something that was wacky on our team. She made it right with everybody else on the team within minutes, because I said, this needs to be corrected. It got corrected. Now we can move forward. But if they don't correct, they need to have a hard conversation and start looking for additional suppliers, additional vendors, additional things, and then say, look, this isn't working for me. We need to move forward. Give them the opportunity to correct. Have that hard conversation, because check this out. We talked about diamonds. I want to make sure we talk about diamonds today. If most of you guys know, my wife's got a shiny thing on her finger. Maybe you guys have some shiny things. If you like some shiny things like diamonds, do me a favor and say diamond in the chat. Do you know how diamonds are forged? You take coal, you put it under pressure, the right conditions, and under pressure, that coal can turn into a diamond or it can turn into dust. Do you know why it can turn into a diamond or turn into dust? It's the right amount of pressure over the right amount of time. See, if you just come down with crushing pressure, and this is about hard conversations, if you just come down with crushing pressure all at once, you will collapse that coal and you will turn it into dust. That's all it'll become. If you just smash it with a hammer, of course, it's not going to turn into a diamond. It's got to be slow pressure over time. Now, in a situation like what we're in right now, is that pressure came all at once. But again, if you need to correct something, you apply slow pressure over time. And the goal would be that coal turns into a diamond over time because pressure was applied in the right amount.
What I would say on that too is having the correct type of pressure. Part of it is, and I see it all the time, especially in this industry, is people don't have the real conversation. They have conversations around the real conversation.
Right.
Well, that's the wrong kind of pressure. That's not going to bring about that diamond. So if you want people in your life and around you to turn into diamonds, you need to have the real conversation. Say what the real thing is. Let's get to the real issue. Don't kind of beat around it and massage it and do, it's crazy the way people go. It's like, just say what it is, and don't attach emotion to it as far as you're a bad person. Just say, look, we've got to deal with this. I would love to be able to work through this and get to the other side of it, but this is the problem, and we've got to fix that. That is the type of pressure that will move someone towards that diamond growth, as opposed, because the other one's like too much pressure will turn them to dust, and the other will just leave them a lump of coal that is a pain in your butt for the rest of your life. That's right. So the question is, do you want diamonds or do you want dust? Do me a favor and type in the chat. Do you want diamonds or do you want dust? I want to know. And here's this week's challenge from the podcast. Challenge today. You ready for this? Some of you guys are going to be like, hell yes. Some of you guys are going to say, hell no. Your challenge is to have that hard conversation that you know you need to have with a vendor, with an employee, with a manager, with a salon owner, with your spouse, with your children, with your whoever. There's one conversation that you need to have in the next 24 hours. If you know what conversation that is right now, the person it needs to be with or the vendor that it needs to be, I don't want you to type that in the chat because I don't need them to see that. I just want you to type in the word one, O-N-E. I want you to type in the word one. Because if you're listening to this podcast right now, and this was a little different podcast than normal, Doug. We got a little heated today. Yeah, well, it's one of those things. In a good way. You got to have that. You got to have that thing out there. Yeah. So do me a favor. Type in the word one if you know that hard conversation that you need to have. And all I want you to do is in the next 24 hours, I want you to message that person and say, I'd like to chat with you. And don't get me wrong. Nobody likes I'd like to chat with you conversation. And people know what's going on. Don't skirt around. Yeah, I love everybody saying one, right? It's like there's that hard conversation. And I'm just gonna say this: if that hard conversation is with me, maybe Doug, you need to have a hard conversation with me. I don't know. But if that hard conversation with me is like I invite that. My family and my household, we had a hard conversation. We needed to have them. And we had a hard conversation with our staff last week just to be able to move forward on something. And you know what? After that hard conversation, we had the best staff meeting we've ever had. Right after that. I think about it is too, Jason. I think when you learn this, you'll look back and you go, "Wow, there was a lot of opportunities to create diamonds in my past because I was unwilling to do this the right way. Either I blew people up and turned them to dust, or I left them a lump of coal." I think you've got the opportunity to affect a lot of people's lives and create a lot of diamonds around you if you do it right. But that's your responsibility. That's not their responsibility. How you how you have those hard conversations will make a huge difference not only in their life but in your life. So if you get that mindset when you go into it, it makes it a lot easier to have that conversation. Totally. I love it. Gio said, I'm going for 2. He's going for 2 hard conversations. Thanks, Gio. I appreciate it, man. And here's what I just want to say to you guys as we're going forward. If you guys like the podcast and you want to see more episodes, this is still new for us. This is episode 7, 8, somewhere in there. I can't remember, but we're trucking. What, 9? I think it's 9, maybe 10. I don't know. You know what day it is, Doug? I don't even know. It's Blur's Day, I believe. It's Blur's Day. By the way, new Blur's Day shirts out and available. Do me a favor, comment with the word Blur's Day in the comments below, and we will send you the link for the Blur's Day shirts you can buy from High Performance Salon Academy. I just got them yesterday. Super stoked. Really pumped about them because I don't know what day it is. I really don't. I'm confused. I don't know. Are we on podcast episode 4? Podcast episode 110? I don't really know. We shoot 10 videos a week. So do me a favor. Reevaluate your relationships. Have those hard conversations. Make sure that you are getting what you need to get because you are asking for it. But by all means, make sure you start with evaluating yourself and saying, where am I showing up big for the people that rely on me? Thank you guys so much for being on today. Looking forward to seeing you on another podcast soon. And Doug, as always, bro, thanks for being on today. Yep. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for listening to the Evo Revo podcast. If you liked today's episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and you can always get more information, including show notes and the video episodes at evorevopodcast.com.